Hello, everyone. It's Victoria with Nutrition by Victoria, back for another video. For those of you who don't know me, I have a Master's of Science in Human Nutrition, and I'm here to help you build a high-functioning metabolism so that you can not only lose the weight for good and stay effortlessly slim, but also be healthy. Okay, so today's video is all about what to eat to maximize your health, but maybe more importantly, to prevent cancer. So I got inspired to make this video based on Frilly the Banana Girl's cancer and sugar series videos that she has been putting out. They've been in her YouTube shorts, and they've also been in her Instagram reels. So we're going to take a look at some of those today. Um, but there's a lot of misinformation out there about cancer and sugar. And a lot of people think that sugar feeds cancer cells, and they're not wrong, but sugar feeds all cells. So we are going to do a deep dive into cancer cell metabolism today and what to eat in order to prevent and possibly even um, you know, get rid of cancer if that is something that you are currently experiencing. So let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you missed me, I've been having a lot going on in my personal life. Somebody sent me a email. I have a contact me page on my website, and they asked if everything was okay because I haven't been uploading. And I've just had a lot going on. I've had contractors in my home because we're doing some renovations. And, with the kids and everything, I'm super busy. My middle child just turned 7. She had a birthday. So, just a lot going on. Many of you have been asking for the cake recipes that I posted on my Instagram account because I did make her a chocolate and vanilla low fat vegan cakes. So one chocolate, one vanilla. For her birthday, completely from scratch, and those recipes are going to be included in my ebook that I am currently working on for you guys. So it's going to be mostly like a recipe ebook. Well, it's a 7-day food and fitness planner, and it's going to include recipes as well. I should really come out with like a sweets recipe book because I make like fat-free pancakes and all kinds of stuff. My kids are all about the baked goods. I do donuts. I also have a pizza crust that I just made up last night, and it was so good. I don't even know why people eat, store-bought pizza crust or, pizza shop pizza crust. It's full of like oils and dough conditioners and things like that when you can make your own so fast at home. It really only takes a little bit of prep time. But anyways, I could ramble forever. You guys know that. But let's get into today's video. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We are going to check out Freely the Banana Girls Instagram page here. You know, Freely is like the queen of the high carb, low fat movement, the high carb, low fat vegan movement. She inspired me. She's the reason why I have the results that I have today, and why I have the food freedom and body freedom that I have today. It all is because of Freely, the banana girl, putting herself out there and sharing the truth. She is the ultimate truth sharer out there, and I find inspiration from her all the time. So we are going to check out some of these videos that she has been doing on whether or not sugar feeds cancer. So let's have a look.
So Barbara O'Neill says that sugar feeds cancer and you have to remove all sugar, including fruit, from your diet.
Eliminating all fruit, all sugars.
Is that true? Let's check it out. So let's take a sugar molecule, glucose, sugar, and let's see what the glucose feeds. Okay, so it feeds brain cells, muscle cells. Yes, it also feeds cancer cells. But importantly, it feeds immune system cells. So this one, the immune system helps fight the cancer. Important for it to have glucose. What happens if we take away the glucose, like everybody suggests, including Barbara O'Neill? Just take it away. Restrict the sugar. The sugar is a problem. Starve the cancer cells, starve the cells of the sugar. Cancer doesn't care. Cancer's like, oh, I'm just going to adapt and use amino acids and fatty acids. And what happens? The cancer gets stronger. The cancer gets more aggressive. It metastasizes. So we have a bigger problem here when we remove the glucose, the sugar, from the cancer cell. And what happens to the other cells? Because every cell in your body, the trillions of cells, actually runs on sugar, runs on glucose. So the immune system gets weaker. The muscle cells get weaker. The brain cells get weaker. They all get.
And we all know, if you've been watching my channel, why they get weaker, and that's because if insufficient glucose is the what we're dealing with our body, where we're like, okay, well, if sugar runs on cancer, if sugar fuels cancer, then I'm just going to cut the sugar out of my diet. Well, what does that do? That initiates gluconeogenesis. And what have we learned about gluconeogenesis is that it makes our body catabolize tissues, muscle tissue, for glucose production so that we have glucose available still to run our TCA cycle and to generate energy. So what Freely is talking about here, with the cancer cell doing the same thing, and then it gets more aggressive. Well, why else would it get more aggressive if we are limiting sugar in our diet? First of all, I do want to mention too that Barbara O'Neill, you guys have probably seen her on Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. She's quite popular. And according to Wikipedia, she is an Australian alternative healthcare promoter who advertises unsupported health practices described as misinformation and a risk to health and safety by the New South Wales Healthcare Complaints Commission. She does not have any recognized qualifications and did not finish nursing training. She has presented her claims at alternative medicine organizations, wellness retreats, and Seventh-day Adventist churches. Okay, so she is a quack, according to the internet. Probably not a good reputation to have, especially if people are watching your videos and then they go and do a simple, search and the internet says that you are a fraud. Anyways, she's still reaching the masses with her fraudulent messaging. So what I wanted to mention, though, about gluconeogenesis is that it promotes insulin resistance. Okay, so let's just pull up. Oh, here it already is. The dietetic factors influencing the glucose tolerance and the activity of insulin. 1934, Percival Hemsworth. Okay. Sugar tolerance is impaired by starvation. So we're talking glucose starvation or the taking of diets with a high content of fat, while it is improved by taking diets containing excess of carbohydrates. So we already know this, if you've been watching my channel, that insulin sensitivity is promoted via a high carbohydrate, low fat diet. Insulin resistance is promoted via glucose starvation and or a high fat diet. Okay, so you can be eating carbs, but having too much fat in your diet, you're still going to be insulin resistant. Okay, you can be eating a high carb, low fat diet, but under eating on calories, and you can be insulin resistant. Okay, so the key here with cancer is that it's going to survive anyways, like the rest of the cells in our body do. But the reason why its proliferation or its growth gets stronger in the absence of sugar is due to insulin resistance and that hormone signaling.
Weaker. And this is not what we want. We want strength. We need the immune system to fight the cancer. But science shows when you remove the glucose, the cancer cell gets stronger. So what needs to happen is a reduction. So we need less of this coming in, less amino acids, less fatty acids, increase carbohydrates, sugar, yes, increase the carbs up, okay? Remove IGF-1 as well. So then you remove.
Okay, so she just gave you the solution there. So whether you are trying to prevent cancer or you already have cancer and you're looking for a solution, it's that right there. And this all comes down to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the breeding ground for cancer. They say that genetics loads the gun, while insulin resistance pulls the trigger, okay? And that has to do with diet and lifestyle factors. High fat, high protein diet. There's all this rage over eating all this protein. Don't you think that that's being promoted? Because once you become a patient, which heart disease is still the number one leading cause of death in the world, but cancer, I believe, is number two, okay? Leading cause of death, at least in the United States. So also, most people who get a cancer diagnosis, they are not going to die in the next 6 weeks. Some do, unfortunately, but most go on to live at least for the next 5 years if they seek treatment, okay, conventional treatment. That's usually what they give you is 5 years, depending on the severity of the cancer. But those 5 years, they're going to be making a ton of money off of you, unfortunately, if you go down that route. And I have family members that have unfortunately gone down that path. They're no longer with me, and it breaks my heart every day. So it's like doing this work of bringing awareness to what causes obesity, what causes cancer, what causes heart disease, comes from a place of genuinely wanting to help people avoid these kinds of fates, because it's not anything you would wish upon somebody whatsoever. And if there is a way to prevent and or get rid of, I think that's the term I can use, these chronic diseases, then why wouldn't you give it a shot? So it all comes down to hormone signaling, cancer development, and cancer is bred from an environment based on insulin resistance.
Removing the cause of the cancer. That's what you want to do. Remove the cause, not remove the fuel to all your cells. So, Barbara.
Okay, so that was an excellent presentation by Freely. Standing ovation is what I would have given that, for sure. Let's see. I haven't even liked it yet. Okay, now I'd have. So now we are going to go through some of the research here and just kind of confirm what it is that she's talking about. So she actually cited quite a bit in her description here. It says cutting sugar or carbohydrates from the diet to starve cancer is like starving an entire village to prevent one person from eating. It's a terrible idea that makes the situation worse. Restricting sugar doesn't starve cancer. The science shows it makes it stronger. Cancer cells are adaptable, and when glucose is restricted, they switch to using amino acids and fatty acids, becoming more aggressive and harder to kill. Meanwhile, immune cells run on glucose to fight cancer, and without their ability to attack tumors is severely weakened. And she has a resource there too. The key: increase healthy carbs to fuel your immune system, lower IGF-1, which is what we're going to talk about next, and reduce excess amino acids and fatty acids that fuel tumor growth. So all these people doing the keto diet, you guys have just fast-tracked your way to promoting tumor cell growth, promoting cancer growth in your body. So if you're not going to get the heart disease first, the cancer is on its way. Uh, Here we go, some science. Glucose restriction doesn't starve cancer, it forces it to adapt and become more aggressive. A 2023 study found that low glucose conditions increased HIF-1 alpha levels in lung cancer cells, making them more resilient and harder to treat. She's got the source there. Cancer cells don't just die without glucose, they adapt. Research shows that when glucose is low, tumors switch to fatty acids and amino acids, making them more aggressive and resistant to treatment. And she's got a whole bunch of resources there too. Okay, which is wonderful. I love to see she's sourcing to peer-reviewed clinical research data. Okay, so next thing I want to do is go over IGF-1. So I talk about this, but I really haven't went into depth. So we're going to let Dr. Greger do some explaining here.
Why do centenarians escape cancer? People who live to be over 100 years old. As we get older, our risk of getting and dying from cancer grows year by year, but once you hit around 85, 90, your cancer risk starts to drop. Kind of makes sense. I mean, if you didn't get it by then, maybe you're never going to get it. If you live that long, maybe it's a sign there's something special about you. It seems that centenarians are endowed with a particular resistance to cancer. So, what's their secret? Well, every day, 50 billion of our cells die, and every day, 50 billion new ones are born. There's a balance, otherwise, our body would atrophy, shrink, or get too big and crowded. Now, sometimes we need to grow, like when we're a baby, or that growth spurt around puberty, right? Our cells don't get larger when we grow up, they get more numerous. A child's hand may only be made up about 50 billion cells and may have to add a half trillion or so growing up. Once we've already grown up, we don't want a lot of extra cells hanging around. I mean, we still need our cells to grow and divide, right? Out with the old, in with the new. We just don't want to be making more cells than we're putting out to pasture. When you're a kid, extra growth is good, but when you're an adult, extra growth can mean a tumor. How do our cells know when to tip the balance in favor of more dividing and less dying, and when to come back into balance? Well, a key signal is IGF-1, a growth hormone called insulin-like growth factor number 1. Levels go up when you're a kid, so you grow, and then come back down. Should your levels stay a bit too high as an adult, though, there's this.
Let me just mention here too that IGF-1 levels in children are naturally high. So they don't need to be eating animal products or any foods that promote elevated IGF-1 levels, which we're going to get into talking about too. But I just want to mention here that this is natural hormone signaling to encourage growth.
Constant message to ourselves: grow, 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 divide, don't die, keep going, keep growing. And so, not surprisingly, the more IGF-1 we have in our bloodstream, the higher our risk for cancer. More IGF-1, more prostate cancer. More IGF-1, more breast cancer. Of course, it's not the original tumor that tends to kill you, it's the metastases. IGF-1 is a growth factor. It helps things grow. So it helps cancer cells break off from the main tumor, migrate into surrounding tissues, and invade the bloodstream. What do you think helps breast cancer get into the bone? IGF-1. And the liver, IGF-1. Lung, brain, lymph nodes, IGF-1. Helps transform normal cells into cancer cells in the first place, then helps them survive, proliferate, self-renew, grow, migrate, invade, stabilize into new tumors, and even helps hook the blood supply up to the new tumor. IGF-1 is a growth hormone that makes things grow. That's what it does. But too much growth when we're all grown up can mean cancer.
So if you took anything from that video, it's that cancer is promoted by hormone signaling, this IGF-1, okay? And IGF-1 is intricately linked with insulin resistance. That's what kind of breeds it. So we're going to go into my coaching program here. I do have a section in my program about IGF-1 and human growth hormone and their interplay. And basically here, they balance each other out, all right? When we have normal or high HGH or human growth hormone has an anti-insulin effect. Basically, it promotes insulin sensitivity and it balances out IGF-1 activity. When we have low HGH, this promotes insulin resistance, okay, and elevates IGF-1 activity. So basically, when we have insulin resistance, we also have elevated IGF-1. This is influenced by dietary fat intake and body fat level. Okay, so low circulating fat levels increase growth hormones, like a human growth hormone. Okay, and elevated levels inhibit growth hormone secretion. So we have a very intricate interplay here, and this is in my section on sleep. Because sleeping has a lot to do with regulating our human growth hormone. But, just like with anything that I talk about on this channel, our hormone balance within our body is influenced by our diet and our lifestyle. So, factors that promote insulin sensitivity include largely our diet, our sleep schedule, and how we move our body. So, if we want to be insulin sensitive, if we want to prevent and get rid of chronic disease, we're going to want to eat a diet that promotes insulin sensitivity. So, high carb, low fat, sufficient calories. We're going to want to get enough sleep. So, 8 to 10 hours a night, preferably during the night. I know some people work third shift. It really doesn't do you any favors working through the night. I know some people don't have a choice. Some nights I've had to be up all night when I've had my babies or, whatever is going on. But you really don't want that to be like the regular thing. You want to have, live in a way that promotes normal hormone functioning in your body so that you have the best outcome in terms of disease prevention. So the next thing we are going to talk about here is, okay, let's see. Okay, so now we are going to watch another video by Dr. Greger about protein intake and IGF-1 production.
What is the mechanism by which our diet can affect our levels of this cancer-promoting growth hormone IGF-1? Imagine you're a kid with some Tinker toys. Then Christmas come early and you get one of those huge sets dumped down in front of you. All excited with this new load of building raw materials, you may really start scaling up. And basically, it's the same thing with your liver and insulin like growth factor 1. When you dump a load of protein on your body, your liver's like, whoa, look at all this. What are we gonna do with it all? We can't just waste it. We gotta do something with it. Let's just start growing stuff. Add a few new additions, maybe a new wing. So your liver decides to start pumping out IGF-1 to tell all the cells in the body it's growing time. Be fruitful and multiply. Spare no expense. Go crazy. Look how much excess protein we got to work with. The problem, of course, is that some of the new additions may be tumors. When you're a fully grown adult, cell growth is something we want to slow down, not accelerate. So one might imagine the goal would be to maintain adequate but non-excessive overall protein intake. But wait a second. Studies have found no association between total protein intake and IGF-1 levels. Doesn't that just go against everything I just said? But these studies didn't take into account animal versus plant protein. In this study of meat eaters, vegetarians, and vegans, they found no significant difference in IGF levels between people eating lots of protein compared to people eating less protein. But before ditching the theory that excessive protein intake boosts the levels of IGF-1, they decided to break it down into animal protein versus plant protein. Higher IGF-1 levels were just associated with animal protein intake. In fact, the plant protein seemed to decrease IGF-1 levels. So no wonder there was no net effect of total protein intake. Animal protein appears to send a much different signal to our livers than most plant proteins. So even those vegans eating the same amount of protein as meat eaters still had lower levels of the cancer-promoting hormone IGF-1. So it's apparently not about excessive protein in general, but about animal protein in particular. And I'll try to explain why.
Okay, so association between animal protein consumption and elevated IGF-1. Then we also have the insulin resistance factor there as well, which if you are a vegan and you're not consuming animal products, the only, you know, promotion there is going to be if you're under eating on carbohydrates and if your diet is too high in dietary fat. So Chef AJ is an example here of a vegan who has cancer right now. And, obviously she hasn't been eating animal products, but we all, have an accumulation of, we're all subject to the accumulation of life experiences that we've went through. But there are things that we can do to be preventative, and the most important thing is to maintain proper insulin sensitivity. So something else that I wanted to bring up here has to do with advanced glycation end products. Okay. So you guys have heard me talk about this before, and I have the study here. Okay. And this is really important to note because the foods that are most associated with elevated IGF-1 levels, the animal protein and fats, okay, are also high in advanced glycation end products. So this is a PubMed study. I've talked about this study before, that dietary advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, are known to contribute to increased oxidant stress and inflammation, which are linked to the recent epidemics of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, as well as cancer. Okay. And animal-derived foods that are high in fat and protein are generally AGE rich and prone to new AGE formation during cooking. In contrast, carbohydrate-rich foods such as vegetables, fruits, whole grains contain relatively few AGEs even after cooking. So there is a trend here. I don't know if you're noticing, but eating a high carb, low fat, sufficient calorie diet promotes insulin sensitivity, and then it also happens to be the lowest in AGE formation, and it maintains proper IGF-1 with human growth hormone balance. Okay. So this is, a cumulative effect, right? But doing all the right things, you give your body the best bang for its buck in terms of optimal health, lean body weight, and disease prevention. So I want to show another video that Freely did talking about cancer's favorite food, okay?
What food should you cut out if you have cancer?
Eliminating all fruit, all sugars.
Fruit?
We already learned that eliminating fruit and sugar is not the solution because the cancer cell will just continue to eat up glutamine, actually, is what it prefers. And we'll talk about that next too. But let's hear what Freely has to say.
Sugar? Let's find out. So, cancer's favorite food. What is it? I know my favorite food is durian, but it's not the case with cancer.
Durian's not my favorite fruit. I've had it before and it's good. It's sweet, but it's fatty. It's got that creamy, kind of ice creamy tone to it. I prefer something like sugar, 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 low fat. That's my jam, So we're talking about like super sweet dates, bananas, adding sugar to strawberries. I had a mango sorbet just 45 minutes ago. Hit the spot, adding sugar to juice. That is it. And in terms of insulin sensitivity, having sweet, low fat fruit is better than having fatty fruit. But, to each their own when it comes to preferences.
And we're going to find out why. So, this is a cancer cell, not a very pretty thing. And yes, it does uptake glucose. And you find glucose in fruit and sugar. But the reason that glucose is powering the cancer cell is because glucose powers all cells in the body. And that this is
something that I haven't talked about that Freely does talk about too is that cancer metabolism of glucose is actually very different from the uh, aerobic respiration energy generation that our cells prefer. And the reason for our body's preference for aerobic respiration in oxidative phosphorylation for energy production is because of the amount of energy that it's able to produce. So, when it comes to normal energy production, our cells prefer to fully oxidize glucose to carbon dioxide and water, okay? And that would be known as, the TCA cycle, and you're going through oxidative phosphorylation. The big term is aerobic respiration, okay? It generates a lot of ATP, 32 ATP units of energy, okay? As opposed to cancer cell metabolism, which I need to pull up the right study here. So, in contrast to normal cells, which rely on mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation, which I just said, where you are fully oxidizing the glucose molecule into, the 32 ATPs, the way that a cancer cell generates energy is based off of aerobic glycolysis, which is termed the Warburg effect because this guy discovered this. Okay. Now, aerobic glycolysis means that oxygen is present and the cell is still preferring glycolysis, which is an anaerobic energy generation process. Basically, it doesn't use oxygen. We use glycolysis to create energy when in a low oxygen environment. So you think about like lactic acid production, okay? So that means that your body was using glycolysis. And glycolysis is something that we use as a backup because it doesn't produce a lot of ATP at all. It requires energy, to run glycolysis, but then it doesn't give you a whole lot of energy, and lactate is the byproduct of this metabolic process. So, it even says here, aerobic glycolysis is an inefficient way to generate ATP. However, the advantage it confers to cancer cells has been unclear. So, in this study, understanding the Warburg effect, the metabolic requirements of cell proliferation, they're basically investigating why a cancer cell would prefer aerobic glycolysis because it doesn't generate a lot of energy, so it's not going to give that cancer cell a lot of energy to work with, okay? Here we propose that the metabolism of cancer cells, and indeed all proliferating cells, which means growing cells, is adapted to facilitate the uptake and incorporation of nutrients into the biomass, which is the tumor itself, okay? And this includes nucleotides, amino acids, and lipids needed to produce a new cell. So basically, I want to show here that this is just showing basically how let's say, microbes and cells from multicellular organisms have similar metabolic phenotypes under similar environmental conditions. Unicellular organisms, which would be like cancer, undergoing exponential growth often grow by fermentation of glucose into a small organic molecule such as ethanol. So, glycolysis is a fermentation type reactions because it's occurring without oxygen. These organisms and proliferating cells are in a multicellular organism it says these organisms and proliferating cells in a multicellular organism both metabolize glucose primarily through glycolysis, excreting large amounts of carbon in the form of ethanol, lactate, or another organic acid such as acetate or butyrate. And then it says unicellular organisms starved of nutrients rely primarily on oxidative metabolism, as do cells in a multicellular organism that are not stimulated to proliferate. This evolutionary conservation suggests that there is an advantage to oxidative metabolism during nutrient limitation and non-oxidative metabolism during cell proliferation. So basically, it's just saying that these cells figure it out. Okay. But really, what I want to show is this one. So, this is showing tumor metabolism here, and this would be healthy cells. Okay. So, healthy cells are going to use oxygen with glucose to create ATP. And I'm sorry, it's 36 moles of ATP, not 32. My math was a little off, or my memory was a little off there. So this is what we prefer here for energy generation. This is the TCA cycle. This is oxidative phosphorylation that occurs in our mitochondria. And then we can also run glucose through glycolysis where we get 2 moles of ATP. For a proliferative tissue or a tumor, proliferative again means that we are dealing with like a growth situation. I think that's what proliferative means. Let me just. I just looked at the word proliferative because I want to get it straight. It refers to a condition where cells are multiplying in response to a hormone signal. So again, we've got that IGF-1 signal, that insulin resistance signaling. And that's why a lot of like keto people have been pro that diet because they're saying, it lowers fasting insulin levels. Same with like fasting in general, it lowers fasting insulin levels. Well, the best way to lower circulating insulin levels and to have it be that way all the time is to eat a diet that makes you insulin sensitive. Okay, so this is going through tumor or cancer cell metabolism where they are preferring to run glucose through glycolysis for 85% of energy generation versus oxidative phosphorylation through the TCA cycle. Okay. And this generates this total effect is only producing 4 moles of ATP. So it's very, very, very inefficient. So everyone's kind of speculating, well, why would these cells prefer this? They say maybe it allows for them to proliferate more, grow faster. But, what we need to address is the hormone signaling that is encouraging this growth rate.
Your cell mutated, so it's also going to uptake glucose, but it's a very inefficient process. We had a look at the bucket example representation last time, as the cancer cell is actually very inefficient and it doesn't use all the glucose that it uptakes. It actually wastes or dumps a lot as lactate.
And that's what we just saw in that diagram.
Waste. So it's not, the glucose is not actually the cancer cell's favorite food. But I'll tell you what is the cancer cell's favorite food, and we cannot cut this out. We cannot cut the glucose out because, again, we're going to be cutting out the defense mechanism of the body because the immune system is also powered by glucose. Okay, so we can't cut it out like that, and it doesn't work anyway because we're going to learn about the fuel, which most major cancers are fuel.
And just to recap too, remember when we cut glucose from our diet, it forces our body to utilize gluconeogenesis. And even when we start to turn on ketosis to provide ketones for our backup energy, we're still running gluconeogenesis. And these processes, these both these metabolic processes program us to be insulin resistant. So we are not getting rid of the hormone signal that is promoting this growth.
Fueled by the cancer cell absolutely loves, and that is glutamine. Glutamine is a non-essential amino acid that the body creates, and it does not need to intake it, but people are intaking a lot of glutamine. Cancer cells love glutamine. It's actually 10 times more efficient. So basically, the cancer cells, they love it 10 times more than glucose.
So I am going to pull up the study that she references here. Cancer metabolism is glutamine sweeter than glucose, and it says glutamine is an essential nutrient for cancer cells. In this issue of Cancer Cell, it shows that malignant transformation by Rho GTPases leads to activation of glutaminase, which converts glutamine to glutamate to fuel cancer cell metabolism. Inhibition of glutaminase by a small compound effectively suppresses oncogenic transformation. So that's how they're looking to create a drug basically to inhibit a cancer cell from taking up glutamine. So this is saying that cancer cells have elevated aerobic glycolysis, which is what we just talked about, and exhibit increased dependency on glutamine for growth and proliferation because of the inefficient energy production via that aerobic glycolysis. So it says, although the glycolytic pathway generates ATP and produces metabolic intermediates for cancer cells, glucose can only provide a carbon source. So glutamine is another essential nutrient for cancer cells and is an abundant amino acid in the serum. Essential functions of glutamine include its conversion to glutamate as a metabolic intermediate to be channeled into the TCA cycle, and its function as a precursor for the biosynthesis of nucleic acids, certain amino acids, and glutathione. Yeah, so it's showing here, let's see, effect of oncogenic signals on glutamine metabolism through regulation of glutaminase. The interconnection between glutamine metabolism and glucose metabolism is also shown. This is so interesting. So, because the cancer cell prefers the glycolysis, it uses glutamine to create more energy via the TCA cycle. Very intricate. So how do we shut this down, you know? And it just gets back into the whole insulin resistance, IGF-1 thing. So like what do you do as a general, you know, person who just wants to be healthy and not get a chronic disease, right? Let's listen to what Freely has to say. And then we're going to wrap this up.
Major cancers that are running on glutamine more than glucose are common ones: brain, breast, cervical, pancreatic, lung, colorectal. These major cancers use more glutamine. They're glutamine addicts. That is their jam. And what is glutamine found in large quantities? What food? So let's take a look. Foods highest: meat, fish, eggs, dairy. These foods are fueling the cancer aggressively because of that glutamine, that non-essential amino acid. Humans are ingesting way too much of it, and it's like throwing fuel on a fire. Doesn't it just make logical sense to go on a low glutamine diet? What food should you?
Yeah, she also has a really good let's find this next one too. Here we go. Yeah, so here's a table that she made showing the highest to lowest glutamine containing foods, glutamine. Yeah, so you can see beef, chicken, turkey, pork, lamb, tuna, tofu, eggs, cheese, almonds, and then, you know, we've got the fruits and vegetables and grains and starches at the bottom there. And ironically, those foods also are, the highest in advanced glycation end products, going back to this study here. So if we check out AGE content, we got almonds 5,000. Let's see here. Mayonnaise 9,000. Heavy cream 2,000. Sesame oil 21,000. Here's meats. Beef 11,000 for AGEs. Beef steak 10,000. I love to show the bacon. Bacon 91,000 AGE rating. Here we go for seafood. Crab meat 3,000. Shrimp 4,000. Here's soy, because she did show tofu up there. Tofu, let's see, raw tofu 700, broiled tofu 4,000. So it has a lot to do with the way you cook things too. Egg 2,000. And let's get down here to grains. Okay. Rice 9. I love to show sugar too. Where is it at? Fruits. Apple 45, cantaloupe 20, banana 9, celery 43, sugar 0. Okay, so you guys get the idea here that if you want to have your best chance at living a long, disease-free life that is pleasant and enjoyable and allows you to, acquire the body that you desire, but then you got the health and disease prevention to go with it, you guys know what to do. And that is to eat a high carbohydrate, low fat, sufficient calorie diet that's based on fruits, vegetables, starches, and sugars. Okay, legumes if you desire them as well. And add the healthy fats if you are too lean. Okay, so we want ideally BMI to be within the normal range. And this is my metabolic transformation. We want to downregulate insulin resistance. That's the goal. You take care of that, you take care of everything else, okay? Insulin resistance is what drives cancer production. So you get rid of that cell signaling, those elevated insulin levels, and you take care of everything else. And you also prevent a whole host of other diseases. You keep your dietary fat low, you're preventing heart disease. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Get a copy of my coaching program if you want to learn all the detailed information. I'll also leave links for the studies that I referenced in this video in the description below. Check out the link in the description for my coaching program and my other coaching services. That's it for today's video. Leave any comments or questions down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.